ago. I mean, it was a GAO study about the programs for employers, not employees. Yeah.
Right.
And it's like 80% of the business is by big companies, not little companies. Yeah.
Right.
So, well, let's start that. So, if I had a small business, what kind of help might there be for, as an employer to actually come to a one-stop?
Actually, lots. First of all, if you come to a one-stop through their business services folks, if you needed assistance with recruitment, you need to hire. Even if you're a small business, okay,
Right.
you need to hire 2 people, say. And this actually happened. A friend of mine owns an insurance company and had asked me about, kind of knew what I did, didn't
Right.
what did I did, and then asked me. He said, "Can you help me?" And I'm like,
Yeah.
"Yeah." I said, "Because I can decrease the time that it's going to take you to find somebody, and I can probably reduce your costs too." And he's like, "Well, how can you do that?" And I'm like, "Well, simple." I said, "What do you do when you go to recruit and hire somebody?" He said, "Well, I put an ad in the paper." Okay. Well, Maryland has a statewide job search website called Maryland Workforce Exchange. Okay. And employers also go on Maryland Workforce Exchange.
Right.
Individual job seekers go on. And within that with that website and that database, the job seekers, there's a resume in there, there's education
wow.
requirements in there, so they can go on and they can search online, like America's Job Bank, if you're
Right.
familiar with that,
Right.
and there's a whole host of
Yes.
other ones too. So job seekers go in and put their information in. Employers come to that site and actually look for people and screen for people. All right. So if you have a job posting, I can post your job in that,
Right.
and then job seekers can see that posting, and it doesn't cost you anything.
Exactly. Right.
So you can post the job, and we can also sort and do matches based upon
Oh,
that.
I see. So when you post a job and people are applying for that, or you have other resumes in the database, you could search through that data
To see
for
what
the
matches.
employer and
For
see
the
what
employer and
matches,
see what matches.
and do that kind of analysis.
And the job seeker can actually respond to the, it depends on what the employer wants, but the job seeker can actually respond to the employer's job announcement or job posting.
I see. I mean directly.
Directly.
Right.
If that's what they want,
Right.
or if they can come
I
through
see.
us.
Right.
If they come through us, then we screen we do elementary screening.
Right.
Just the same. It would save you the first step if you
Right.
put it in the paper.
Yeah.
Because every time you put a job ad in the paper, you probably get it's probably like a third, and a third. So you probably about a third of the people that you get are just
terrible.
underqualified.
Right.
A third are overqualified, and it's
Right.
that center third that you probably
Exactly.
really want to look at,
Yeah.
and that's what Workforce Development
That's it.
Services can help you obtain.
So you get us down to the third.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's
So
over time.
what else for the employer?
There's also outplacement assistance. If an employer is say you've been in an area and for whatever reason, for economic reasons, or because you found you found a place that's better suited to your business and you need to move. Most areas hope that you don't do that, but if you do, as opposed to just laying off everybody and having them fend for themselves, we go in and work with the employers, if the employers will let us,
Right.
And help provide them with outplacement assistance.
Wow.
Now, outplacement assistance is really kind of a, if you go with a lot of employers will contract out
Right.
with different firms. That outplacement assistance can cost an employer anywhere between $90,000 and several $100,000, depending on the size of the company.
Wow.
We had done one with a local, well, actually not local, with a national grocery chain here a few years ago, who basically had laid off about 400 people and moved.
Wow.
Okay, and they were paying a, quote unquote, a professional consultant to do that, and it was costing them about $180,000 to do that. Until they found out that the consultant had to come to us anyway because we have access to the unemployment data, we have access to resources that they don't because they're not a government entity,
Exactly.
and they don't have that connectivity.
Right.
So so basically what they did is they ended up dumping the outplacement service, and they actually just went with us.
That's terrific. How about like if you're a small employer, the training money that's available for in-house employees?
Okay.
Is that from you guys through One Stops, or where is that
Yes,
from?
I mean, Maryland has a specific program called the Maryland Business Works. And the way it works, it's a 50% reimbursement
I see.
program. It's really designed for smaller employers, because we were mentioning them a while ago.
Right.
But if the employer is in an area where they're kind of like the part of the big game in town, if you're in an area where that industry is dependent upon that employer, then the area itself can decide that, yeah, it's an in-demand industry in my area, and I'd like to have these funds go, and they ask the state if we can do that, and most times they say yes.
Yeah.
So what that will do is that will reimburse, in Maryland, the employer for 50% of the employee's training cost, usually up to about $5,000 per employee.
Yeah. So what would be a small business? I mean, is there an example you could think of, half a dozen that would call? I mean, would like to go to a Microsoft computer course or something that costs...
Oh, the training
$10,000?
course?
Yeah,
the
the training
programs?
money, yeah.
The training money can go to, it could go for a, it has to be a transferable skill, so anything like a Microsoft training program.
Right.
It could be if it's paired with something else, it could be English as a second language.
I see, huh.
It could be a variety of different types of
Customer service?
customer
something like
service
that?
training,
Really? Wow.
upgrade skills training. The key thing is the training should be transferable so that
Right.
it promotes the individual,
Skill
or it helps
level.
to walk up the
Right. So in
ladder.
other words, if I was an employer of a small business, I'd say, wow, God, I'd love to get this customer service people, trained, and there was a course for $1,000 or something like that. That, in other words, the state could kick in $500 for
You'd
them
pick
to
up
go
half
to.
of it.
Yeah. Huh.
The employer selects the training. They select the individuals.
Wow.
And all they really have to do
All you do is write the check.
all they got to do is it is reimbursement, so the employer has to pay for
Right.
it up front, and then when they're done with it, they would send the invoice back
Oh,
to the
wow.
local area, and they would cut them a check for
Wow.
$500. As easy as that.
So it's not a stack of forms like this. You gotta
No,
put
it's
in-
actually, this is really easy.
Right.
There are some that are like that,
Yeah.
but Maryland Business Works is
Wow.
definitely the
Huh.
easiest income worker training program.
What else? I mean, in some of these centers around, I've seen like helping employees with employers with daycare centers and other kinds of things that may help a business. You know what I mean? Or is that rare?
That's kind of the daycare piece of it's kind of rare because of the licensing
I
required
see.
with holding children. Some centers have child care facilities like your gym would, so that you can leave your children there as long as
I
you're
see,
there.
right.
But you can't leave them there and
No,
then.
I don't mean that. I mean like helping businesses who want to start a daycare center in their business.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
I mean, they will. A lot of workforce centers are partnered with their economic development offices, so that becomes basically small business entrepreneurial
see.
types of activities, and the two can combine their energies and efforts to help an employer do something like that.
I see.
Because it comes back to training, it comes back to
Right.
access to capital and things
Right.
like that, and to funds. So, they could do that.
Yeah. So on the employer side, it's really hiring people, firing people, and training people.
Right.
Yeah, that's what you're wrong. So if I'm looking for a job side, first of all, what it comes to my mind, do I have to be out of a job to come to you?
No.
Okay.
If you can come to any one stop anywhere in the U.S. to look for a better job or to look for any job. Where the eligibility comes in, it's for training dollars.
I see, okay.
For training dollars and for what the feds call intensive services. So if there's any type, basically if there's an intensive service like a training type of activity, you'd send somebody to community college or to a
Right.
college to get trained, then you'd have to be eligible, and more than likely you'd have to be unemployed.
Right. So if you're out of a job, if you're not on a job yet, it'd be wise to come and start learning the system. So
Sure.
then if you're out, then you don't have to pay. How many people spend 6 months and then
Right.
they're against the wall now?
Now they have to get a job.
Yeah, right. Exactly. But also for the training. So I mean, if you're looking for like starting a business, I mean, does Maryland have many centers where it help you start a business?
The business entrepreneurial training programs
right.
and a lot of areas, a lot of counties in the state have what they call small business resource centers.
Uh-huh.
The county we're in right now, Anne Arundel County in Maryland, the local economic development office and the local workforce office, since I used to be the director.
Right,
of
I
County, we partnered together and created a small business resource center. And the idea is we brought exactly what we were talking about a few minutes ago. Is we tried to bring as many services and resources together for small businesses and for businesses in general. So you had the workforce programs. You had the small business loan programs and so forth that were all there. You had other types of programs too that were associated with ways to. There's a group here called SCORE, and what they do is it's retired executives, and they actually come in and. If you want to start your own business, they actually give you advice on how to start your business, capital, raising capital.
But your training money, can that be used for entrepreneurial training?
The training money could be used for that, but the person has to meet the eligibility requirements.
Which would be, why would
if
that
they're
be
unemployed.
Different? Okay, right. Okay. That's what I mean. So most of the training money is unemployed. Actually, I was in one of your centers, and it was a couple of years ago, and where do you live? Mike, you live in Columbia, Maryland, the one there.
Okay.
And there were like doctors coming in. And, and getting, because they're out of a job now as a doctor.
Right.
and they need to upgrade their skills, and they go back and take some course to do something so they could get another job.
Well, and that brings up a good point too, because a lot of people, the connotation that it's the unemployment office.
Right.
Okay. We have everyone, every economic level that you could possibly imagine go into one stops. Use one stops to find jobs, to find a better job, to find training activities, or to do things like find a summer job for their kids.
So theoretically, as long as you're out of work, this training money is available. Yeah, and then you have to qualify in other ways. And my understanding, most of it is that there has to be, they don't want you to get trained to be a buggy whip manufacturer.
if you're using, they want you to be trained in a demand industry.
Right.
Something that, for a good example would be is that no one's going to approve training for a photo lab technician anymore.
I see, right.
Because there's no more photo labs.
Right. How about massage therapy or something like that?
Every state has, as part of workforce development services, they have what's known as the Labor Market Information Group, and they actually do research and gather statistics on what are the growing industries and what are the demand industries based upon the number of people that are in those industries, based upon unemployment taxes paid. Any of those.
So that data comes from unemployment taxes paid?
Yeah. Wage records.
I see. That's where the wage records are. Yeah. So if I'm looking for a job, then I can come to One Stop and help me find a job, right?
And in some cases, you don't even have to come to One Stop.
Oh, really? Just all online?
In Maryland, we have Maryland Workforce Exchange is www.mwejobs.com. And you can go online and search for the jobs that are there. You can search in some cases specifically for a we recently, in the past year or so, had started to concentrate areas of large concentrations of employers, like BWI Airport, for example, here. BWI Airport, there's about 250 separate employers in that airport. The problem with it is none of them is going to spend the money to start a website so they all can post their jobs.
Right.
So the state, at the request of the Anne Arundel Workforce Director, which was me at the time, created a special button on that website to consolidate all those jobs.
Oh, wonderful! Well, that's
so that is so that enabled that people, if they wanted to go and get a job at the airport, to do that. Because it was something they couldn't do before because of the security, because you can't get back to the employers because you have to have an airline ticket.
Right, exactly.
So unless you want to search for a job when you're en route to a flight.
So back at, if I'm an employee, out of work, or going to soon be out of work, or thinking about, a better job, what you guys offer is you help me do resumes, right?
Yes.
Okay. And my understanding too is that you will photocopy my resumes if I need 100 or something like that.
If you need to copy your resumes and send them out, you can copy your resumes and send them out.
Online services. Do you have online help available that I could use a computer there or not?
Yes, there's in every One Stop there's at least one computer. There's at least one bank of computers, and some One Stops there's several banks.
Right. Wow.
Okay.
So I mean, it's like a headhunting, but it's free, right?
Right.
And then plus the magic is that if I need to be trained for a job that's in demand, that's training money. And
correct.
My understanding that training money, I mean, that's you're not going to get a PhD, out of
Correct.
this.
It's designed for short-term type
Right,
of training.
Right. So a couple months, up to a year. Is there a rule?
There's it's generally speaking, the rule is about 6 months to a year max. Some
there are
areas will exceed that, but not.
cases,
But in some cases, but not too often. In some cases you'll have someone come in and needs 2 classes to finish a baccalaureate degree.
Oh, I see. Huh.
So that would be
Yeah.
something that I would have definitely
Wow.
funded.
Wow, see, that's a real new one. I never
So,
even thought of it that way.
because you figure, you're either in the process of going to
Right.
school, you may lose your job along the way,
Right.
so now you don't have tuition assistance anymore, but you still have 2 classes left to take.
Right.
Maybe you ran out of financial aid,
Right.
so you're trying to find ways.
So would that be possible even if you're employed to get that?
The incumbent worker training programs are usually dealt based upon working with the employer,
I see.
and they're usually on a
Gotcha.
50% reimbursement basis
Right.
because you are
Uh-huh.
employed
Ooh, that's interesting.
with the employer.
So I could go to my employer and get them to contact you to get that tuition paid.
Yes, exactly.
Right. But who would have known that?
And that's kind of the marketing strategy that we've done too.
Exactly. Now let me. I'm one of the. There's one of these things. All the So I see WI Adult. Now that's what we were talking about. Most of those programs.
That was one of them. There's actually the 2 that deal with the average person that walks in. Are the adults basically are pretty much anybody. Some areas have income restrictions on it
Right.
because there's income restrictions on the performance levels of this. So, and it varies from area to area. But then you have dislocated workers, and dislocated
Right.
workers is basically someone who was working someplace and through no fault of their own was laid off because of a
Now,
company downsizing.
does the company have to apply for that?
No.
No.
Okay.
So I could come in if I was fired because I shrank a little bit and laid some people off. Okay. So could those people be a dislocated worker?
Yes, they are.
They are.
Fired, no. Laid off, yes.
Yes, right.
Okay, so if you're laid off,
Yes.
okay, all you have to do is you would bring in either usually like the employer's going to give you a letter saying we're
Right.
laying you off effective this
Right.
date. So you
Right.
keep a copy of that letter,
Right.
And you take that into your one stop with you, and
Mhm.
that's your ticket for eligibility for training dollars.
Training. Wow. Gee, that's amazing. Huh? And that's well. Then how about then the other one that interests me too is the Trade Adjustment Assistant one.
Trade Adjustments Assistant Act is very similar to the dislocated worker
Right.
piece. Trade adjustment is really interesting because what it can do, it kind of is partnered with unemployment insurance, and it can actually extend your unemployment benefits while you go to training.
I see. So, if my little company that I laid somebody off with, if we have to prove that I laid it off because of imports or something like that?
Right, foreign
Okay.
competition.
Foreign competition. So if somehow foreign competition, I got to convince the board or somebody else.
What
right?
happens with the Trade Adjustment Act is that the employer has to file a petition with the U.S.
I
Department of
see.
Labor. And if the petition is approved, then it means
Then
that
they're
all the
fine.
individuals laid off
Right.
as a result of that are eligible
Right.
for Trade Adjustment
So if
Act
a
assistance.
company is shrinking, it behoove one of those employees to get the boss to do that.
Correct.
Right. Because then they extend their unemployment compensation.
Correct.
And number 2, then they're eligible for training money. They may be eligible for training money anyway, right?
They would be eligible for training money anyway.
Right,
But
right.
this would help. This would cover their.
get-
This would cover their unemployment. The time it would extend their unemployment from 1 year to up to 2 years.
Wow. Another year of unemployment to get out of it. Wow.
Right.
That's terrific. Who would have known? Now, unemployment now, I've read somewhere recently that less people are eligible for unemployment. Why is that in our economy? Just the kind of economy we have because people are just flitting around too much and so they're not officially fired or
They don't.
or
Well,
officially laid off
you
or
have
something?
to. You have to. Obviously, you have to pay in. It's an insurance.
I
It's like
see.
it's an insurance policy, basically. So with unemployment, the person has to basically make enough payments to pay into the system to go get
That's why
pay out.
we don't have as many.
So if you've got someone who has who's worked for a significant period of time, then they have contributed into
I
the
see.
system and should be able to draw
Gotcha.
it back out. out again.
So that's the issue, is
Yeah.
that a lot of people maybe have funny jobs where they're not putting into the system and they're paying taxes but not to the unemployment.
Exactly.
Right. I see. And adults, seniors, I mean, all these programs. So, I mean, what you're telling me, I mean, and what I would tell everybody, you don't even know what's there. I mean, every place is going to be different. Mainly, these programs are set up to help people when they have trouble getting work.
Right.
Yeah. Most of them are not income requirement, right?
Not very many anymore. I mean,
Yeah.
the adult funding stream, like I said, areas do have income restrictions, and some of them are pretty low, which makes it difficult.
Yeah.
The one that we didn't talk about was youth.
Oh,
And youth,
uh-huh.
there is a. It's
What
a-
is youth? What age is-
It's basically designed to help youth who have basically dropped out of high school re-engage the workforce.
But how old?
How old?
Yeah, how old? Is considered
You got to be
youth?
16 to drop out of high school, so it would be
So-
16 to 21.
Okay, 16 to 21, yeah. And so and that youth is only for high school dropouts?
It is for, you have to be economically disadvantaged, and you have to
Uh-huh.
have barriers to employment. And one
Right.
of them would be if you
I
have
see.
if you have a handicap or disability.
Uh-huh.
So if you were a kid and you were in school and you had an IEP, that would also
What's an IEP?
Individual
Learning?
education plan.
I don't even know what that is, even though you explained it. But if, so is it fair to say that if you're 16 to 21 and you have trouble getting a job, you should check it out anyway?
You should check it out anyway. There's
Yeah.
probably going to be services in there for you
Yeah,
anyway.
yeah.
If you're looking for a job and you don't know where to start,
Yeah.
it's a good place to start.
But even training money, I mean, a lot of it sounds, it's complicated or so much is based on individual, even though, I mean, talking to you, I mean, a lot of us think that, well, because there's this big rule in the law, but the rule in the law is a little wavy based on the individual circumstances
Correct.
many times.
Correct.
So that it's hard to say definitely you're eligible, you're not, and all this kind of stuff because
Correct.
the individual circumstance could change that whole thing.
Correct.
Because there's so many ifs, ands, or buts in the law, even though there's an income requirement that says X dollars, then we have the if, ands, or buts in
Right.
paragraph C.
Right, and that's what the one-stop staff are
Yeah.
supposed to do. They're supposed to
Yeah.
navigate you through that and be able to determine your eligibility for that, and also connect you with partner program services that they may not be administering, but they may have
Yeah.
someone there that can.
Yeah.
You know, we talked about entrepreneurial training programs.
Right.
The economic development offices, if they're connected
Right.
to the workforce, to the WIBs in that area, their programs they offer free in many
Right.
cases entrepreneurial training programs, how to write a business plan,
Right,
those sorts of
exactly.
things.
Right. Why hire an accountant thousands of dollars from
Right.
do it? Yeah, for free. No, I believe. Well, this is wonderful. Do you have anything you want to say? You think we didn't cover? You want to get out?
The only thing is that the services that are there. Take advantage of them. You can, if you can get access to a computer and Google Workforce Investment Act and Google Workforce Investment Boards, you'll come up with something that's in your area for
Yeah.
sure.
And the money. A lot of people. Now we're going to talk about budget cuts. I mean, because there's budget cuts in the paper, that means all your training money goes away.
When you see federal cuts in the paper, that's a danger.
Uh-huh.
That is a danger to training funds. As a matter of fact, it's funny you mentioned that the omnibus bill that was just passed actually included a $250 million national rescission for workforce programs.
A national rescission means they're taking it away?
Right, they're taking back money basically
I
they already
see.
gave you.
Yeah.
So they gave you money,
Uh-huh.
and then now that they need it, they're kind of like
Right.
Indian givers. They're
Right.
taking it back. The bad part about it is you may have already spent it.
I see.
Because it's not on new money, it's on past
I
money.
see.
So we're just trying to figure out what the impact of that is going to be
I see.
on
That's
us as a
interesting.
state. So.
But what I sort of see is that when budget cuts are like that, it's usually a fraction of a percent if it really happens. Versus it's usually the talk that everybody hears and reads about versus the reality. That happens 6 months later.
Right.
And everybody politically gets it. And people have a perception. So I wonder if your calls go down when that happens because they think, oh, you've gone away. I read about budget cuts.
Well,
that office isn't there anymore.
Well,
Yeah.
like I said, when we started, workforce programs have been around since the
Right,
1930s.
you haven't gone away.
and they haven't gone away yet.
Yeah, and probably incrementally grown every year.
Yeah, pretty much,
Yeah.
or have expanded in different directions
Yeah.
anyway. I think workforce programs are going to be around for a while.
Probably more needed now than ever before.
Exactly, because at the present time, you know,
Yeah.
with the retirement of the baby boomers of that generation, and with the you know, that creates a lot of opportunities for folks.
Also, nobody's staying in jobs long, so everybody's going like this and that. You know,
Everybody
we got
jumps.
15
This generation jumps.
right.
My generation jumps.
But it's not us that wanting to do it. I think it's reality.
Right.
That's mega. I mean, the business is gone. No business is going to go like this, like IBM in the 50s, 60s, 70s.
Right.
You know, that businesses are growing, shrinking, blah, 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 that, and so everybody's much more flexible. And actually, I don't know if you heard yesterday, they're talking about what new money programs for workers if a recession's coming, you know, and they're even talking about, I mean, it was so Rubin and a bunch of smart guys, you know, I guess got in a room to see what they could offer, you know.
Well, the funny part about it is, if you look at the history of workforce programs, is that when the economy takes a turn for the worst, usually funding for workforce programs increases.
Right. Exactly. That's what they're talking about. All the programs, you know, instead of giving a tax break, let's get the money. They need a job, you know,
Right.
and things like that, and that will finance the economy and boom it too. You know.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, that's what I was saying. That's what they're talking about. So you may be in for a raise.
That'd be great.
Thank you.
Thanks.